everyone. Those who have a voice must speak for those who are voiceless, by Oscar Romero. According to the source titled St. Oscar Romero, and I quote, Oscar Romero was important because he focused on the rights and the ends of oppression for the poor. Today I'll be informing you about Oscar Romero's priesthood, the protest, and his canonization. First, I'll be discussing Romero's priesthood. Second, I'll be discussing Romero's protest in El Salvador. And third, I'll be discussing Romero's canonization. According to the source titled Archbishop Oscar Romero, and I quote, Romero felt a vocation for the Roman Catholic priesthood. He then left home the following year to enter the seminary. He studied in El Salvador and in Rome and was ordained a priest in 1942. This means that Oscar Romero knew he had a calling to become a priest. He began to study at a seminar for minors in El Salvador, and by the age of 18, he traveled to Rome to finish his career in priesthood. In the year of 1942, he was ordained a priest. According to the source titled Oscar Romero, A Voice for Poor Communities, and I quote, Oscar Romero was ordained a priest and then returned to El Salvador. He was very famous for his sermons. He did a lot of parish work, like visiting prisons and working with others in the church to provide help and food for the poor. This means that Oscar Romero was ordained a priest and then returned to El Salvador. He did a lot of church work, like visiting prisoners to talk to them about God and providing help for the poor people. Now that you know about the priesthood of Oscar Romero, let's talk about the protests that occurred during the times of Oscar Romero. According to the source titled Oscar Romero, A Voice for Poor Communities, I quote, when the army killed 3 people in the village of Tres Calles in Romero's diocese, he comforted the families and wrote a letter to the president to protest for the murders. This means that by the mid-1970s, there was a lot of human rights oppressions towards the poor people by the Salvadorian government. When the poor people would stand up for their rights, the Salvadorian government would kill them. Romero did not at all agree with the poor people having to be killed because they were standing up for their rights. Therefore, he wrote to the president of El Salvador to protest for the killings. According to the source titled Oscar Romero, Archbishop Killed While Saying Mass, will be named a saint on Sunday, and I quote the following 3 quotes. Oscar Anulfo Romero, the Salvadorian champion of the poor, who was assassinated as he said Mass in 1980, Archbishop Romero had received several threats before a sniper fired a single shot, killing him. The previous year, Archbishop Romero had angered government supporters. This means that the violence in El Salvador continued between the government and those who would stand up for their basic rights. Romero was constantly threatened for his work. On March 24, 1980, Romero was eventually killed by an assassin in front of many people as he said Mass. Now that you know the protest that happened while Oscar Romero was alive, let's talk about his canonization after his death. According to the source, Oscar Romero, Pope Paul VI, elevated to sainthood, and I quote, back in El Salvador, many people stayed up late at night watching the live video of the canonization of the martyred Archbishop. Romero was a hero for many, particularly El Salvador's poor. This means that Romero was seen as a hero and a martyr to many Salvadorians. They believe that he had died for fighting for the rights of the poor. According to the source titled Archbishop Oscar Romero becomes a saint, but his death still haunts El Salvador, and I quote, he will henceforth be known as Saint Oscar Romero. The miracle necessary for sainthood was provided by a Salvadorian man whose wife had slipped into coma after giving birth. He prayed to Romero and his wife survived. This means that Romero was canonized by Pope Francis after a miracle occurred in Romero's name. The Salvadorian man prayed to Romero after his wife slipped into coma after giving birth, in which she survived. This miracle was enough to make Romero a saint, and he is now known as Saint Oscar Romero. Uh, First, I discussed Romero's priesthood. Second, I discussed Romero's protest in El Salvador. And third, I discussed Romero's canonization. Today, I informed you about Oscar Romero's priesthood, the protest in El Salvador, and his canonization. Let's follow in the footsteps of St. Oscar Romero and become the voice of those who don't have a voice nor rights. Thank you.